On this episode of Locked On Angels, are the Angels the most improved team in the AL West? Don't laugh. Stop laughing. It might be true, and we're going to tell you why today. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. You can download their app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase.
Happy Monday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, it's our third offseason here at Locked On Angels, and starting this week with this episode, we're going to be here 3 days a week throughout the offseason. We will ramp back up to 5 days a week before spring training, of course, but we'll have some in-between content every now and then as well. But I mentioned it on Friday, Mike. I'm kind of glad this is the time of year where we do drop to 3 episodes because I need all the breaks I can get. The dad brain is strong right now.
Yeah, but you have a lot of energy today, so I'm really proud of you. You're sleeping well. You're kind of recovering. Things starting to get into a normal rhythm over there. Hopefully, right?
Exactly. Getting into a routine that's working for all of us. Hey, on today's show, are the Halos the most improved team in the AL West so far this offseason? Well, we're going to find out. We're going to look at each team's F-WAR. That's Fangraphs Wins Above Replacement. That's how much a player contributes to a team in terms of, how many wins does a team get simply by virtue of this player being on the team. Now, I want to caveat our conversation today with the fact that WAR is not predictive. So it tells us where they've been, and ideally they would continue to be. For example, Mike Trout last year in 29 games put up 1 F-WAR, right? And next year he could put up more than that because he might play more than 29 games, or he could put up a negative WAR and just tank and absolutely fall apart and regress. But I don't think that's going to happen. So again, it's not predictive, but it is a good baseline for where things are. Mike, I think it's important before we get into the other AL West teams, let's talk about the Halos themselves. Where have they improved? What have they done so far?
Yeah, their total team WAR in 2024 was 34.8 F-WAR. Now, they've made some additions. Here are the additions that they've made so far. Ryan Noda is on this team, came from the Athletics, and came with not a great WAR from last season, a negative 0.6, but is probably expected to be more of a backup, maybe high AAA guy. They're going to kind of use him in those roles. Kyle Hendricks is here. He had a 0.4 WAR last season. Travis d'Arnaud, John's GM pick, he's here and had a 1.8 WAR last season. Kevin Newman is here, 1.4 WAR last season. Yusei Kikuchi had the highest WAR of all of these guys, a 3.5 Fangraphs WAR last season. And Jorge Soler, they made a trade for him. Remember, that feels like it was years ago, off seasons ago.
I almost forgot to add him to this list.
Yeah. Jorge Soler had a 1.1 Fangraphs WAR last season for a total WAR added for the Angels of 7.6 Fangraphs WAR.
Okay. And then in terms of subtractions, this is really interesting, Mike. Matt Thaiss had a negative 0.2 WAR. Griffin Canning had a positive 2.2 WAR. Brandon Drury, negative 2.1 WAR. We all felt that last season, right?
Yeah.
Patrick Sandoval, 1.2 WAR added. Matt Moore had a negative 0.7 WAR. Kevin Pillar had a positive 0.5. Hunter Strickland, for all that he did for us, 0.3 Fangraphs WAR. And so that actually means that they subtracted a total of negative 0.8 WAR. So if you combine the positive that they've added and then subtract the negative that they've added, in theory, they've added 8.4 Fangraphs WAR so far this offseason between what they've added and what they've subtracted. Remember, their team total, Fangraphs WAR, last year was 34.8.
Mm-hmm.
If they maintain that and add to what they've added so far this offseason, the 8.4, Mike, they would be at 43.2 team WAR, meaning this takes them from 23rd in the league for F WAR in 2024 to 10th.
Wow.
That's 2 spots behind the Rangers, 1 spot behind the Astros, barely in front of the Mariners, and then 13 ahead of the A's. Now, having said that, obviously the other teams are going to add players and make improvements and stuff like that. But you think about, I mentioned this earlier, Trout put up 1 WAR in 20 games.
Yeah.
And if he adds more games to his season next year, that's certainly going to be an improvement, right?
Yeah. Can you see how health has impacted this team? I mean, I know that everydayers know this, right? Fans of this team know this. Health has been the issue for the Angels. There's other issues that are below that, but health has always been the issue. And 2 of your best players, highest paid players, are not on the field. And John, Trout, just playing by 140 games or so will already add to the WAR count, because he's not going to, I don't think Trout will be a negative WAR player.
No, I was just kidding. Just to say that, it's not predictive. It's
right.
It's where they've been, and Trout would only go up from where he's been unless he plays, 20 games, then that's going to be a regression, right?
Sure. But health, it matters. And I even think that a healthy Anthony Rendon in a different role, not a starter role, could actually bring maybe a positive WAR to this team. And so for the Angels, adding all of these players and getting rid of the players that they got rid of, to add 8.4 WAR and to be at 43.2 is a good sign. And you can see how just a few moves can change things for you. John, they went from 23rd in the league last year to this year would put them at 10th if they had this WAR. So you can see just a few moves, and not necessarily like game changer, bargain the future type of moves. It can be a game changer for this team, which is why the moves that they've made so far, and I'm going to say so far, have been beneficial for this organization, for this roster, and for 2025.
Yeah, you look at the subtractions again. Matt Thaiss, I didn't realize he was a negative in terms of WAR. Thaiss, Drury, and Matt Moore really contributed to the negative side of things.
Yeah.
And when you add it all up, who they lost over the offseason to free agency or through trades, and the fact that that's a negative 0.8 that they've cast away from this team is a addition by subtraction, right, Mike?
Yeah.
That's kind of what the Angels have been able to do here. At the same time, the fact that this team is competitive with the 2024 versions of the rest of the AL West is really interesting to me, because when you consider the fact that they have where they were last year, 34.8, right? The additions that they've made have obviously added some win totals. The subtractions they made have gotten rid of the negativity.
Yeah.
And so I know that the 2025 version of the Angels, the Rangers, the Mariners, the A's, the Astros, they're all going to look different. But if the 2025 version of the Angels played this past season, they would have been right up there with the 2024 versions of the rest of the AL West. And that's really what it comes down to, is being competitive in the AL West. And you see the stuff that the other teams have done so far, and we'll get into what they have done and what they haven't done so far later on in the show. But you look at what the Angels have done so far. This is a long offseason, right?
Yeah.
And we know that the Rangers will improve. We know the Astros will improve. But I have to say, like, where the Angels are at now, and if there are more moves to be done, I think that's pretty significant, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. And I think right now, with the way that the AL West looks, now's your chance, Perry Manassi, and now's your chance, Angels, right? Like, go after it, because the Astros traded away Kyle Tucker, so that Angel killer is out of the AL West, right?
Goodbye.
And he's like, I think a 26,000 WAR against the Angels, because just so good. And I would love to have that guy on my team. I think he's going to be outpriced for the Angels once he hits free agency next offseason, but he's gone. And we're not sure what Alex Bregman is going to do. We're not sure where he's going to land. And the other teams aren't necessarily drastically improved. Now, they'll probably have some health, and that will help because with the Angels, it'll help as well. But now is a great time to go, I want something that'll push me over that finish line, something that won't just be an average player. I want somebody that's going to push me to a place of, you're going to have to deal with me now. And just by virtue of adding what they've added so far, they're going to have to deal with the Angels, but have another pitcher, another infielder, those two things that are major league caliber players that potentially could start. Brendan Rodgers is out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe somebody like a Walker Buehler, right? Like taking a shot at some of these guys, I think puts the Angels in the conversation for not just the third wild card, but for the AL West. Because at this point, I don't think anybody's going to blow our minds with a 95 to 99 win season unless something really clicks for them. I think the AL West is going to be in that 89 to 92 win frame. And I think the Angels are right there if they continue to add, and now's the time to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it wouldn't take much either, considering that they are leaps and bounds in terms of what they've added to their WAR total. They are leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the AL West. And we're going to tell you what that looks like. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on the show, what about the Astros, the Rangers, the A's, the Seattle Mariners?
I left them off on purpose. I don't know.
There you go. Here's the thing. You guys might be surprised, but the Angels are the only ones so far this offseason to add WAR to their team total from last year. The rest of the AL West has not added to their WAR total from last year. We're going to get into all of that coming right up.
Today's show of Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, if you're a new customer, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And this app, the FanDuel app, gives you everything that you need all in the same place to place your best bets, especially when it comes to the NFL and football and watching football. And our team's not doing great, so maybe we bet, and that way it'll engage us, right? When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view the play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today, and when you do, if you're a new customer, you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends at SelectQuote. You need SelectQuote on your team, especially when it comes to protecting your legacy and your family's financial future. Mike, I'm a dad now. I got to start thinking about this kind of stuff.
Yep.
SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion with a B in coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less. But with SelectQuote, their licensed insurance agents work for you, and they tailor a life insurance policy to your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. So you don't have to spend a ton of time on the phone or anything like that.
So good.
If you're in good health, they work with carriers that could get you same-day coverage for up to $5 million with no medical exam required. And these policies are much more affordable than you might think. You could get coverage for up to $1 million for as little as $20 per month. So head to SelectQuote.com/lockedon, and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. That's SelectQuote.com/lockedon to get started. SelectQuote, they shop and you save.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. John, as we talk about the most improved team in the AL West, we talked about the Angels in the first segment and what they did, who they added. They added about 8 Fangraph WAR, 7.6 Fangraph WAR to their team, which gives them a total, including last year's total from the team, and subtracting those that have left the team, about 43.2 Fangraphs WAR. Again, WAR is not the end-all, be-all, but it's a good measurement of where these players have been and what they potentially could bring to the roster. Now, let's look at the rest of the AL West, and let's start with the team that has been a thorn in our side.
Yeah.
And there have been moments where we've been a thorn as well, but they've been a thorn in our side, and they've had an interesting offseason, and that is the Houston Astros. Why don't you get us started?
Yeah, last year the Astros had a total team WAR of 43.3. This offseason, they just did this the other day. They added Isaac Paredes, who's worth 3.4 Fangraphs WAR. Hayden Wesneski from the Cubs as well, 0.2 WAR. And then they signed Steven Okert, who is worth negative 0.2 WAR. So in total, they have added 3.4 Fangraphs WAR.
Now, they have subtracted some players. Now, there's still some players up in the air, like Alex Bregman. He had a 4.1 Fangraphs WAR last season. Caleb Ferguson is not on this team. He had a 0.3 WAR. Jason Hayward, he had a 0.8 WAR. Yusei Kikuchi, we got him. He had a 3.5 WAR. Hector Neris, I'll get it right. Didn't have a WAR, was an average player. He was at 0. Justin Verlander, a 0.7 WAR. And then the guy we've talked about, Kyle Tucker, 4.2 WAR. That's a total of 13.6 WAR that is off of this team right now, Johnny.
Yeah, so between the changes of what they've added and what they've lost, overall, Mike, they've lost a total of 10.2 Fangraphs WAR. So they went from a 43.3 team WAR last year to, as they currently stand on December 16th, 33.1. That's less than what the Angels were last year with their total team WAR. They were 34.8. The Astros right now, 33.1. Now, they still have tons to do this offseason. They're still in talks with Bregman. Sounds like they're in play with Arenado right now, trying to trade for him. I'm also interested to see who they're going to utilize from the minor leagues if the Astros have some, hidden gems that we don't know about. We'll see how it shakes out. But again, on December 16th, there's a lot of off-season. But so far, the Angels have improved and the Astros have taken a step back.
Yeah, and with the Astros, I mean, you talk about those hidden gems in the minor leagues. Kyle Tucker was a hidden gem in the minor league, and he came up and he crushed it.
And then they said, hey, we don't need Carlos Correa. We have Jeremy Pena.
Right.
Like, bye, Carlos.
They've made all those great moves. Yeah, they've made all those great moves, and so they do have a great minor league system. John, let's talk about the not minor league A's, but they're going to be playing in a minor league stadium.
They're
A's.
Intriguing to me. Like
they are.
I liked watching what they had last year, especially somebody like Lawrence Butler.
Yep.
And I knew they weren't going to be as bad as everybody made them out to be. I know we were mostly talking about the frustrations of them moving last season, but the fact is they were a pretty good team, and I know they were 4th place in the West, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do for the rest of this offseason. Let's get into what they've done so far, Mike.
Yeah, so in 2024, they had a 34.9 WAR, and they've made 3 additions so far. They signed Luis Severino, 2.1 WAR last season. They signed him to the richest contract in their team's history. And there's a whole lot of discussion that is behind that as well. Now they're out of Oakland, and now they're spending money, and there's probably some pressure on the A's to spend the money because there is revenue sharing. And so that's a whole nother segment, right? Locked on A's might have you covered on that one. Jeffrey Springs is now on this team as well, got traded from Tampa. He had a 0.4 WAR last season. And then TJ McFarland is on this team, and he had a 0.3 WAR for a total of 2.5 Fangraph WAR. That's what they added, Johnny.
Yeah, it's interesting too because they had TJ McFarland last year. They brought him back. So again, he's part of the subtractions, but he's also part of the addition. So 0.3 WAR. Abraham Toro, 0.7. Ross Stripling put up 1.1. How about the chicken strip, Mike? That's pretty cool. Daz Cameron is no longer on this team. He was worth negative 0.4. Ryan Noda, of course, is with the Angels now, negative 0.6. Kyle Muller gave them a positive 0.1. Tyler Nevin was a negative 0.4. Nick Allen was a negative 0.6. And Joe Boyle was a positive 0.3. So in total, they have subtracted a positive 0.5 WAR when you add all that up. So they, in total, between the 2.5 they've added and the 0.5 they've lost 0.5. And so they go from a 34.9 Fangraphs Team WAR to a 34.4 Fangraphs Team WAR. For the A's, I mentioned it. I can see them getting better. The addition of Jeffrey Springs and Luis Severino is going to add a whole bunch to this team. They're going to be interesting to watch. And again, like you mentioned, there was some clashing going to take place if they didn't spend the money that they have been acquiring through revenue sharing. Plus, it just drives me nuts that John Fisher decides to spend now that they're not going to be in Oakland. But, it all came to a head, and they got to fill that 10,000 seat stadium in Sacramento somehow, right, Mike?
Right. John, the numbers for the Angels, 43.2 total WAR with the additions. They're way ahead of the Astros currently. The Astros are at 33.1, and they're a bit ahead of the A's as well at 34.4. So we're in good position here based off of the players that we brought in and their previous history. And so that's against a team that we were battling at the bottom end against the A's and a team that finished at the top, the Astros. And so moving forward, there's other teams in the league that we're going to have to look at in the AL West with the Mariners and with the Rangers. But right now, Johnny, the Angels look pretty good, don't they?
Yeah, I'm liking where they're sitting. Again, so much addition by subtraction as well. And when you think about how much of a better bat that somebody like Travis d'Arnaud will be over Matt Thaiss, even Kevin Newman, who is going to play that Brandon Drury role, you'd think coming into the season, put up way more positive WAR than Drury did. Drury was a black hole, man. It was just awful. Not good. Felt bad for him because he did so well for us a year ago. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens and how all of this shakes out when the Angels roll into 2025. And that's before they make any more additions, which we're all hoping that they can do.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. They are obsessed with finding ways to save you money on tickets. With Game Time, you can get last-minute deals on tickets and save up to 60% off of whatever you're going to. Sports, concert, comedy, theater, so much more. And with exclusive in-app flash deals on select seats ahead of time or the event, you can save money there. And they have zone deals where you choose the section and Game Time chooses the seats. And what I love about them is they have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time is going to credit you the 110% of the difference. With every purchase, Game Time gives you their best ticketing coverage, the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So download their app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB to get $20 off your first purchase. Again, LOCKEDONMLB to get $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? Game Time.
Okay, I know we've been throwing a ton of numbers out. And so on the video side, on YouTube, or maybe you're watching us on your smart TV, I have been putting up the numbers for each of the WAR that's been added and subtracted. If you're on the audio side, come on over to YouTube today and you can check out the episode and get a visual aid if you'd like. We'll also put these on social media so that you can reference them as well, but because it's significant. The things that the Angels have added so far, and then who they've subtracted, even the positive WAR players, Mike, like Hunter Strickland or Kevin Pillar, the fact that the Angels had a net gain of 8, right, is really significant. Now, ask me if I feel bad about the Mariners right now, because
do you feel bad about the Mariners right now?
The Mariners, oh my God. What are they even doing? Let's talk about the Seattle Mariners. In 2024, they had a total team Fangraphs WAR of 42.3. Okay, so they were sitting pretty, and
kind of where the Angels are currently with their additions. Yes.
Yeah, they're slightly behind the Angels with their current additions. So again, this version of the Angels, if they had played last year, they would be competitive with the AL West, even with the Bregmans and Tuckers and all that. But as far as the Mariners go, they've made 2 additions, Mike.
Yeah.
Austin Shenton, who was worth 0.3 Fangraphs WAR last year, and Junior Marte, negative 2 Fangraphs WAR. So that means that so far this offseason, they've added positive 0.1 Fangraphs WAR.
Wow.
Now, in terms of subtractions, there's a long list here. They have lost Kirby Snead. He was worth 0, so perfectly average. Sebi Savalia, 0, perfectly average. Yimi Garcia was worth 0.4 Fangraphs WAR last year. Justin Turner, Mike, 1.2 Fangraphs WAR.
I'm
That
not
guy.
surprised. I know that guy, he just comes through wherever he's at. It might even be worth taking a flyer on him if you're the Angels, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Luis Urias, 0.2 positive WAR. Jorge Polanco was worth 0.3 positive WAR. JT Chargois was negative 0.2. Josh Rojas, too. And I think this has a lot to do with what he brings to the field. Josh Rojas was worth 1.9 positive WAR. Then Austin Voth, perfectly average, 0 Fangraphs WAR. So they have lost a positive 3.8 Fangraphs WAR this offseason. So between what they've added, what they've lost, in total, they've lost 3.7 Fangraphs WAR. And if you take that away from where their team WAR was last year, they have dropped to a team WAR total of 38.6 this offseason. Mike, my question is, what are you doing, Seattle? You have the best pitching rotation in the entire world.
Yeah.
And you can't add any offense. You can't add any bats. Not that I want you to, because I don't want you to beat the Angels, but good grief, man. Like,
now's the time.
I know. Like, they're totally missing their window. It's going to be another King Felix situation, except they have like 3 of them in their rotation, and they're not going to go anywhere. It's mind-boggling to me what these owners and Jerry Dipoto is going to depote.
I was just
like
going
he
to
always
say,
does.
yep,
You're right.
He's depoting right now. If you want more on the Mariners, Locked On Mariners is great. They've got the details. They're watching that every single day, and they're as frustrated as we've expressed in just the few seconds that we've talked about the Mariners, because they haven't done much, if anything, and they could really add to this team and they could be great, but they haven't done that. A team that actually has added a bit to their team, Johnny, are the Rangers. Now, they ended last season, 2024, with a 43.9 Fangraphs WAR. They've added Kyle Higashioka, a 1.6 WAR. Adrian Hauser, he was a negative 0.1. Jacob Webb, 0.6 WAR. Jake Berger, 1.4 WAR. And then Nate Eovaldi, a 2.4 WAR, 3-year deal for him. I actually would love to have him on the Angels, but they didn't get him. That's an additional 5.9 Fangraphs WAR for the Rangers. Now, they lost a lot of players. Andrew Haney, 2.2 WAR. I'm surprised he even had 2.2 WAR. Travis Janikowski, a negative 0.3 WAR. Carson Kelly, 1.8. Jose Leclerc, a 0.8 WAR. Max Scherzer, 0.6 WAR. Jose Urena, 0.1 WAR. Kirby Yates, 1.9 WAR. Andrew Chafin, 0.4 WAR. Nate Eovaldi, 2.4, but they did get him back. And then David Robertson, 1.9 WAR. So they have lost 11.8 WAR. They added 5.9 WAR. So when you look at all those numbers together, they actually dropped to 38 WAR based off of where they ended last season. I'm sure that there's going to be some more improvements and replacements to come to the Rangers. But I really think, Johnny, that with these numbers in front of us, it reinforces what we talked about at the end of the first segment. Angels, now's the time to make some moves, because you are sitting pretty in amongst what potentially the guys that you've added to your team can do for this team in 2025.
Yeah, I think the Rangers have become what we've wanted the Angels to be for a long time, and that's a very aggressive team in the offseason. I think that they will continue to be aggressive. Yeah. I love the Kyle Higashioka ad. That's huge. The fact that, Nate Eovaldi kind of zeroes himself out with the addition and subtraction of him. Yeah. But Mike, look at how many relievers they lost. Carson Kelly, Jose Leclerc, Jose Urena, Kirby Yates, Andrew Chafin, and David Robertson. That's most of the WAR that they lost came out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
And the only bullpen arms they've added so far, Adrian Hauser and Jacob Webb, they got a lot to do in that bullpen, unless they have guys coming up that they're excited about from the minor leagues, kind of like how we view the bullpen, right? So all that to say, I think the Rangers are going to be the most aggressive. I think that they were in on Burns and Fried, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they handle things for the rest of the offseason. But Mike, as things stand, like we keep mentioning, the Angels, what they've added and subtracted has yielded a positive 8.4 and puts them smack dab in the middle of the AL West among the competitive teams too. It's not just the fact that, the A's are way down at the bottom with the Angels. It's that the Angels added so much just before the winter meetings, to be honest with you. And if they continue to add, if they strike while the iron's hot, it's going to be a really interesting 2025. Again, that doesn't mean the other teams aren't going to improve or find ways to add WAR. And I really want to reiterate that WAR looks back. It's a reflection. It's not what the future holds or anything like that. In fact, Fangraphs does have, projections, which I think are significant. But again, I really want to hammer this point home. If the Angels can at least do what they did last season, with the additions of the 8.4 they've added, plus you get a good season from Trout, you got to take into consideration that Zach Neto might not be as productive because he's going to miss the beginning of the season. And so his total WAR over the course of 2025 might not be as high. So there's a lot of things you have to balance, a lot of considerations you have to make. But just a brief overview of the guys who contributed at the major league level for the Angels, for the Astros, and the rest of the AL West. So far, the Angels are most improved, and that's really exciting to see.
Hey, thanks for making the most improved Angels and Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, you can check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. Going to bring a blend of humor and baseball and keep you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. We'll be posting the graphics from today's show so that you can kind of review them as well. I saw a couple typos. I got to fix that. I left the D off of Darno. How did I do that? Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Well, I've said that when we don't do things or like holidays coming up, we're not going to do anything. And so I'm going to say that. I'm going to say, if they're probably not going to do anything. And so we're not going to have any updates on the Angels because I want some updates. But when we're back on Wednesday, we are going to talk about the Angels prospects. And I know the rankings are terrible, but I really think that, again, the rankings are not actually measuring the players that we have in the minor leagues right now. We're going to talk about those players and those rankings on Wednesday on Locked On Angels.
Yes, thank you. I got to hammer out the tomorrow coming up because, it's a new rhythm for us here for the off season. All right, friends, we hope you'll come back and join us on Wednesday. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
I got a
crying baby. I got to go.
Go.
Get out of here.